The target was a mile out, the crosswinds were howling, and the best snipers in the military were missing. Then, a woman in a floral blouse and mom jeans stepped up to the mat. They called her a joke. 5 seconds later, a 4-star general was speechless. Sarah Hayes sat in the driver's seat of her 2019 silver Honda Odyssey, using a baby wipe to aggressively scrub a smear of strawberry jam off the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, she checked her reflection. At 38, she looked exactly like what she was on paper. A suburban mother of 2, the treasurer of the elementary school PTA, and a woman whose biggest daily crisis usually involved finding a lost shin guard before soccer practice. She wore a pale blue cardigan, sensible denim jeans, and a pair of scuffed New Balance sneakers. She tossed the baby wipe into a plastic grocery bag on the passenger floorboard, shifted the minivan into drive, and pulled up to the reinforced steel gates of a heavily wooded, deeply classified Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, annex nestled in the dense pines just south of Fort Story, Virginia. The heavily armed military police officer at the gatehouse leaned out of his booth, his hand resting casually on his holstered sidearm. He took one look at the minivan, the proud parent bumper sticker fading on the rear bumper, and offered a patronizing smile. "Ma'am, I think your GPS took you down the wrong access road," the young corporal said, his voice dripping with forced politeness. "The civilian highway is about 4 miles back that way. This is a restricted federal installation." Sarah didn't say a word. She simply reached into her leather purse, pushing aside a half-empty box of apple juice boxes and a crumpled grocery receipt, and pulled out a solid black identification card. It had no photo, no rank, and no barcode. It only possessed a gold microchip and a sequence of embossed alphanumeric codes that the corporal had never seen in his standard training manuals. Frowning, the guard took the card and swiped it through his terminal. The machine didn't just beep. The screen flashed a solid, glowing red sequence, instantly locking the corporal out of his own workstation. A single directive appeared on his monitor in stark block letters. Level 7 clearance. Do not detain. Do not log entry. Open gate immediately. The color completely drained from the young military police officer's face. He swallowed hard, handing the black card back with a visibly trembling hand. I apologize, ma'am. Proceed." "Thank you, Corporal," Sarah said pleasantly, her voice warm and maternal. The heavy steel barriers rolled back, and the silver minivan glided into the heart of the most elite military compound on the eastern seaboard. Sarah parked her Odyssey in a gravel lot sandwiched between flat black armored SUVs, lifted Toyota Tacomas, and Humvees. She popped the trunk, stepping out into the crisp, salt-tinged Atlantic air. Reaching into the back, she pulled out a massive, heavy-duty Pelican case. It was battered, scuffed with desert sand that seemed permanently baked into the polymer and weighed nearly 40 pounds. She hauled it out with a practiced, effortless motion that completely defied her unassuming appearance. A quarter mile away, Range 4 was loud, chaotic, and drowning in testosterone. Range 4 was a specialized 2-kilometer sniper gauntlet. It was designed to break the best shooters in the world. Today, it was hosting a classified selection process for Operation Blackbird, an upcoming, highly sensitive, high-value target extraction mission in a densely populated Middle Eastern capital. The mission required a sniper overwatch who could thread a needle through a moving vehicle from a mile away without hitting civilians. Pacing furiously behind the firing line was General Thomas Arrington, a 4-star combat veteran with a chest full of ribbons and a reputation for being entirely unforgiving. Arrington was watching his timeline evaporate. "Unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable," Arrington barked, lowering his spotting scope. He glared down at the 2 Army Ranger snipers lying on the mats. "You are missing the steel by 3 feet. If that was a hostile holding a hostage, you just blew the hostage's head off and started World War III. What is the problem, Sergeant?" "Sir, the wind!" The spotter yelled back over the ringing in his ears, pointing down the massive expanse of the range. "We've got a 10-mile-per-hour crosswind at 500 yards, but it's swirling in the valley at 1,200. It's an unpredictable updraft, sir. The ballistics computers are giving us ghost data." "I don't care about your computers," Arrington roared, his face flushed with anger. "The enemy doesn't care about the updraft. I need a shooter who can feel the wind, not read it off a screen." "Who's next?" A team of Marine Force recon snipers stepped back, looking equally defeated. For 2 hours, the best trigger pullers in the United States military had been trying to hit a 6-inch moving steel plate at 1,800 yards through a volatile coastal crosswind. Nobody had landed a single round on target. It was into this tense, hostile environment that Sarah Hayes walked, dragging her heavy Pelican case through the gravel. A group of Navy SEALs, clad in Crye-Precision combat pants and tactical fleece jackets, were leaning against the tailgate of a truck, aggressively chewing tobacco and waiting their turn. One of them, a massive petty officer named Davies, caught sight of Sarah approaching. He blinked, rubbing his eyes as if he were hallucinating. "Hey, what the hell is that?" The other operators turned. A collective murmur of confusion and amusement rippled through the staging area. "Is the USO doing a bake sale today?" one of the Rangers muttered, earning a round of snickers. "Hey, sweetheart," Davies called out, a smirk plastered across his bearded face. "I think you took a wrong turn at the commissary. The PTA meeting is off base." Sarah ignored them entirely. She walked past the chuckling operators, her eyes fixed entirely on the firing line. She approached the empty mat on the far left of the range, right next to the struggling Army team. She knelt down and unlatched the heavy clasps of her Pelican case. Whoa, hold on a second, lady." A towering master sergeant stepped forward, holding up a hand. "You can't be out here. This is a live fire classified evaluation. You need to turn around and get back in your minivan before I have the MPs drag you out in handcuffs." Sarah looked up at him, her expression perfectly serene. "I'm slated for the 0900 evaluation. I'm right on time." The master sergeant laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You, lady? I don't know whose wife you are, or what kind of VIP tour you think you're on, but this isn't a country club. The rifles we're firing will dislocate your shoulder. Now pack up the box and get out." From down the line, General Arrington finally noticed the commotion. He stormed over, his boots crunching loudly against the gravel. "Master Sergeant, what is the delay? Why is there a civilian on my firing line?" "Sir, I'm trying to remove her now," the sergeant stammered. Sarah didn't look at the general. She simply popped the lid of her Pelican case. Inside, nestled in custom-cut foam, was a heavily modified Macmillan TAC 338 sniper rifle, chambered in 338 Lapua Magnum. It wasn't a standard military-issue weapon. It was a ghost gun. The serial numbers had been professionally milled off. The stock was wrapped in worn, frayed desert camouflage netting, and the scope was a massive, ultra-high-end Schmidt & Bender optic that cost more than most cars. It was a weapon that had clearly seen years of brutal, unforgiving combat. The laughter from the SEALs and Rangers abruptly died. "You didn't buy a rifle like that at a sporting goods store." Sarah calmly lifted the massive weapon, ignoring the stunned stares. She laid down on the shooting mat, getting into the prone position. The cardigan rode up slightly, but she didn't care. She settled the stock into the pocket of her shoulder, closing her eyes for a brief, fleeting second. The suburban mother vanished. The killer awoke. "Ma'am, step away from the weapon," General Arrington commanded, his voice echoing across the silent range. He marched directly toward her, his face a mask of absolute authority. "I don't know how you bypassed gate security, but you are currently interfering with a Tier 1 military operation. I am giving you one warning before I have you arrested for federal espionage." Sarah didn't flinch. She didn't look up from the glass of the optic. "General Arrington," Sarah said, her voice completely devoid of the warm, maternal tone she had used at the gate. It was cold, flat, and chillingly steady. It was a voice accustomed to calling in airstrikes over a radio. "Target is the 6-inch moving steel at 1,800 yards, correct?" Arrington stopped dead in his tracks, momentarily thrown off balance by the absolute, icy professionalism in her tone. "Who gave you my name?" "Your spotter is using the wrong data," Sarah continued, ignoring his question. She reached up, making a minute adjustment to her elevation turret without looking at it, counting the microscopic clicks entirely by feel. He's factoring in the wind at the 500-yard mark, but he's ignoring the mirage. The heat coming off the asphalt berm at 800 yards is creating a thermal updraft. The wind isn't pushing left to right, it's pushing up and left. Your boys are shooting over the target. The Army Ranger spotter nearby blinked, looking down at his Kestrel weather meter, then back up at the range. "Sir, the mirage. She might be right." "I don't care if she's the ghost of Chris Kyle," Arrington exploded. "Get her off the mat." "Shooter ready," Sarah announced softly. Arrington opened his mouth to scream for the guards. Crack. The concussive shockwave of the 338 Lapua Magnum, erupting from the muzzle brake, hit the bystanders like a physical punch to the chest. The massive rifle recoiled violently, but Sarah absorbed it perfectly, her body rolling with the physics of the weapon. She didn't blink. She didn't pull her eye away from the scope. Her hand instantly flew to the bolt, racking it back and chambering a second round in a blur of mechanical precision. 3 full seconds passed as the heavy bullet tore through the air, fighting gravity, wind, and the rotation of the earth itself. Ping. The faint, unmistakable sound of lead obliterating steel echoed back from 1,800 yards away. The entire range froze. The swaggering Navy SEALs leaning against their trucks dropped their jaws. Davies, the massive petty officer who had mocked her, let his chewing tobacco fall out of his mouth onto the dirt. "Impact," the ranger spotter whispered, staring through his spotting scope in sheer disbelief. "Dead center. She hit the moving plate. Dead center." "It's a fluke," General Arrington snapped, though his eyes widened. "A lucky shot." Crack. Sarah fired again, racked the bolt. Crack. Fired again, racked the bolt. Crack. 3 more shots rang out in less than 6 seconds. The speed at which she reacquired the target, calculated the shifting wind, and pulled the 3-pound trigger was inhuman. It was the rhythm of a machine. 3 seconds later, the echoes returned. Ping, ping, ping. 3 more impacts, the spotter stammered, his voice cracking. "Grouping is, dear God, the grouping is less than 3 inches. At a mile out, on a moving target." Sarah calmly pushed the safety on, opened the bolt, and stood up. She brushed the dirt off the knees of her sensible jeans, picked up her spent brass casings, and slipped them into her pocket. Absolute, suffocating silence blanketed the range. The elite operators, the men who considered themselves the deadliest apex predators on the planet, were staring at the woman in the blue cardigan as if she had just descended from the sky. General Arrington stood completely rigid. The anger had evaporated from his face, replaced by a profound, gnawing sense of confusion and disbelief. He took a slow step toward her. "Who are you?" Arrington demanded, his voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. "No civilian shoots like that. No standard military sniper shoots like that. I want your name, your rank, and your unit. Now." "My name is Sarah Hayes," she replied plainly. "I don't have a rank, General, and I don't exist on any roster you have clearance to read." Arrington's eyes narrowed. "I am a 4-star general in the United States Army. I command JSOC. There isn't a file in the Pentagon. I don't have clearance to read." "With respect, sir," Sarah said, stepping closer to him, "you're wrong." Arrington's jaw tightened. "Listen to me, lady. I don't care if you're CIA Special Activities Division or some black book contractor. You don't come onto my base, disrespect my men, and talk to me in riddles. You are going to tell me exactly who you are, or you will vanish into a federal holding cell." Sarah looked into the general's eyes. She saw the fierce pride, the stubbornness, but also the desperation of a commander who needed a miracle to save his upcoming mission. 12 years ago, Sarah said softly, her voice dropping so only Arrington could hear her. "Korangal Valley, Operation Red Wings Fallout. You were a colonel. Your convoy was ambushed by Taliban insurgents using high-ground DSK machine guns. You were pinned down in a riverbed for 14 hours. You lost 3 men. You were bleeding out from a shrapnel wound to the thigh." Arrington's breath hitched. The color drained from his face, replaced by an ashen gray. He took a step back, his eyes wide. That mission was heavily classified. The details of his injury were sealed. "Air support couldn't get to you because of the weather," Sarah continued, her voice hauntingly calm. "But then, the DSHK gunners started dropping, one by one, from a ridge a mile away. Over the course of 4 hours, an unknown sniper systematically dismantled the 50-man ambush element covering your medevac. You never met the shooter. Command told you it was a drone strike to cover up the fact that a ghost asset was operating in the sector." "How?" Arrington choked out, his chest heaving. "How do you know about that?" Sarah didn't answer verbally. Instead, she reached for the cuff of her pale blue cardigan. With a swift, fluid motion, she pushed the sleeve up past her elbow, exposing her left forearm. Burned into her skin was a faded, meticulously detailed tattoo. It was the SEAL trident, but it was horribly, deliberately modified. Instead of the traditional eagle, a skeletal bone frog gripped the trident. Wrapped around the anchor was a broken arrow, and directly beneath it were 3 Roman numerals: Z. Beneath that, in jagged Gothic script, was a single word: Wraith. General Arrington stopped breathing. He stared at the ink, his mind fracturing as the pieces of a 12-year-old puzzle violently slammed into place. The tattoo was a myth, a campfire story whispered among Tier 1 operators. It belonged to the unacknowledged, completely redacted Echo element of SEAL Team 6, a program so illegal and highly classified that the Pentagon would burn before admitting it existed. They were operators recruited for their ability to blend in anywhere, to strike without warning, and to vanish without a trace. And the call sign Wraith belonged to the deadliest of them all, the Ghost of Kandahar, the sniper who had saved Arrington's life in the Korangal. The operators behind Arrington, the SEALs, and the Rangers craned their necks to see the tattoo. When the petty officer, Davies, saw the bone frog and the numerals, his knees physically buckled. He backed away, his face pale, suddenly realizing he had just made a joke about a bake sale to the most lethal assassin in American military history. Arrington slowly raised his eyes from the tattoo to Sarah's face. He looked at the soft lines of her jaw, the messy bun in her hair, the cardigan, the ultimate camouflage. No one would ever look twice at a soccer mom driving a minivan. Tears welled up in the corners of the battle-hardened general's eyes. The man who bowed to no one, the commander of the most fearsome military apparatus on the globe, slowly, deliberately, bowed his head. "You," Arrington's voice cracked. "It was you." "Are we done playing games on the range, General?" Sarah asked, rolling her sleeve back down, instantly becoming the PTA mother once again. "Or do you want to show me the dossier for Operation Blackbird?" The air in the Al-Hasaka province of northeastern Syria tasted like copper and pulverized concrete. It was 0200 hours, and the labyrinthine streets of the city were bathed in the sickly green luminescence of military-grade night vision. Operation Blackbird was a chaotic disaster before the first boot even hit the pavement. The objective was Dr. William Kessler, a rogue defense contractor who had stolen proprietary drone schematics from General Atomics and was attempting to sell them to a syndicate of foreign intelligence operatives. The extraction team, comprised of the elite Navy SEALs, who had mocked Sarah at the Virginia range, was tasked with breaching Kessler's fortified safehouse, securing the drive, and exfiltrating before the local militia realized they were there. But intelligence had been flawed. The safehouse wasn't guarded by a dozen disorganized militiamen. It was protected by a heavily armed, professional mercenary platoon equipped with L3 Harris jamming gear and Russian-made thermal optics. From a shattered minaret exactly 1,900 yards away, Sarah Hayes watched the trap spring shut. She wasn't wearing a cardigan now. She was clad in an advanced, temperature-regulating ghillie suit, her face painted in asymmetric stripes of flat black and olive drab. Her Macmillan TAC 338 was mounted on a customized carbon fiber tripod, the massive Schmidt and Bender optic piercing the desert darkness. Through her earpiece, the encrypted tactical frequency erupted into panicked chaos. "Overlord, this is Team Alpha. We are pinned down at the extraction point, taking heavy PKM machine gun fire from the northern corridor. We have 2 wounded, requesting immediate close air support." It was Commander Bradley Richards, his voice strained over the deafening chatter of incoming rounds. "Negative. Alpha." The Tactical Operations Center buzzed back. "Airspace is heavily contested. We have hostile surface-to-air radar locking onto any birds within a 50-mile radius. You have no air support. Over." Down in the kill zone, the SEALs were trapped behind the crumbling walls of an ancient courtyard. Chief Petty Officer Davies, the massive bearded operator, who had asked if Sarah was running a bake sale, was desperately trying to suppress the enemy advance with his Mark 48 machine gun, but the sheer volume of incoming fire was tearing the concrete to dust around him. A technical, a heavily armored Toyota Hilux mounting a DSJ heavy machine gun, rolled to the end of the street, its barrel swinging directly toward Davies' position. "Davies, move! They're walking the 50 cal right onto you!" Richards screamed over the comms. "I can't!" Davies roared back, blood streaking down his face from a superficial shrapnel wound. "If I drop suppression, they breach the compound. We die right here, boss!" High in the minaret, Sarah slowed her heart rate to 40 beats per minute. She tuned out the screaming on the radio. She ignored the sweat stinging her eyes. She became the math. Distance, 1,912 yards. Wind, 8 miles per hour crossing from the east, funneling through the urban canyons. Elevation drop, 412 inches. She exhaled, emptying her lungs entirely, resting in the natural respiratory pause between breaths. Alpha, this is Wraith. Sarah's voice sliced through the panicked radio chatter like a surgical scalpel. It was perfectly, terrifyingly calm. Keep your heads down. Crack. The suppressed. 338 Lapua Magnum sent a 300 grain armor-piercing round screaming across the night sky at over 2,700 feet per second. Down in the street, the gunner manning the DSK on the back of the technical suddenly folded completely in half, violently thrown backward out of the truck bed as if struck by an invisible freight train. The heavy machine gun spun wildly, firing harmlessly into the sky before falling silent. Davies blinked, staring at the empty turret, his mouth dropping open. Before the mercenaries could comprehend what had happened, a second round arrived. Crack. The engine block of the armored Hilux shattered, a geyser of boiling oil and pulverized metal exploding from the hood as the vehicle lurched to a permanent halt, effectively blocking the enemy's avenue of approach. Target disabled, Sarah reported flatly. Commander Richards, you have 3 hostiles flanking your eastern wall. They are carrying RPGs, moving to engage. Copy that, Wraith! Richards yelled, absolute awe bleeding into his voice. For the next 22 minutes, Sarah Hayes orchestrated a masterclass in psychological and kinetic warfare. She didn't just shoot, she herded the enemy. When a squad of mercenaries tried to flank the SEALs through an alleyway, Sarah shot the reinforced steel hinges off an overhead water tower, sending a tidal wave of debris and water crashing down, trapping them. When an enemy sniper set up on a rooftop 1,500 yards away, Sarah detected the faint microscopic glint of ambient light off his lens. She calculated the Coriolis effect, the actual rotation of the Earth beneath the bullet's flight path, and put a round through his scope before he could chamber his first bullet. Down in the dirt, Davies looked up at the night sky. The men who had previously scoffed at the soccer mom were now entirely dependent on her for their survival. Every time an enemy peeked a corner, the silence of the night was shattered by the distant, thunderous crack of her rifle, followed instantly by the threat dropping to the pavement. Wraith, this is Alpha, Richards panted, hauling the secured Dr. Kessler over his shoulder. We have a clear path to the exfil chopper. We are moving. God bless you, ma'am. Copy, Alpha, Sarah replied softly. I've got your 6. Get home safe. 72 hours later, the heavy ramp of a Boeing C-17 Globemaster lowered onto the tarmac of the classified JSOC Annex in Virginia. The morning sun was just beginning to burn through the coastal fog. The SEAL team walked down the ramp, exhausted, battered, but entirely alive. Waiting for them on the tarmac was General Thomas Arrington. As the team formed up, a silver 2019 Honda Odyssey quietly pulled through the security checkpoint and parked near the hangars. Sarah stepped out. She was back in her uniform, a beige knit sweater, comfortable denim, and a pair of tortoiseshell sunglasses pushed up into her hair. She walked toward the commanding officer, holding a manila folder containing her post-action debriefing. Before she could reach Arrington, Chief Petty Officer Davies stepped out of the formation. The giant, battle-hardened Tier 1 operator walked directly up to Sarah. The rest of the team stopped, watching in silence. Davies towered over her, but his posture was completely devoid of its usual arrogance. He slowly took off his tactical ball cap, looking down at his boots before meeting her eyes. Ma'am, Davies started, his voice thick with emotion. He swallowed hard. 3 days ago I made a joke about a bake sale. I disrespected you. And last night, you saved my life. You saved all of our lives. I have operated with the greatest shooters in the history of the United States Navy, and I have never, ever seen anything like what you did out there. He extended a massive, calloused hand. It would be the honor of my life if you would shake my hand, ma'am. Sarah looked at the giant operator. A warm, genuinely maternal smile spread across her face. She reached out and took his hand, giving it a firm shake. You did good down there, Chief, Sarah said kindly. Next time, just remember to keep your head tucked behind the primary barricade when reloading. You expose your left shoulder too much. Davies nodded solemnly, completely absorbing the critique. Yes, ma'am, I will. General Arrington stepped forward, dismissing the team with a wave of his hand. He looked at Sarah, a mix of reverence and desperation in his eyes. "Sarah," Arrington began, lowering his voice. "The Pentagon read the after-action reports. They are completely stunned. The President wants to pin the Navy Cross on you in a closed-door ceremony. Furthermore, I have authorization to offer you a permanent command billet, O6 pay grade. You would run the entire Echo program. You can name your price, build your own team, and write your own rules." Sarah looked out over the tarmac, watching the cargo crews unload the heavy equipment. She sighed softly, the gentle breeze catching a loose strand of her hair. "General, I appreciate the offer," she said, her tone polite but entirely final. "But I left that life behind for a reason. I came back for this one mission because I knew the intel was bad, and I knew your boys were walking into a meat grinder. The debt from the Korengal Valley is paid. My ledger is clean." "But the country needs you," Arrington pressed, stepping closer. "Assets like you. They doesn't just retire. You are a weapon, Sarah. The ultimate weapon." Sarah handed him the manila folder. She smiled, tapping her Apple Watch. "I'm a mother, General," she corrected him gently, "and it's 8:15 a.m. I have to drop off 3 dozen orange slices for the U12 Wildcats soccer tournament by 9, and then I have a budget meeting with the PTA regarding the new playground equipment. If I'm late, the principal gets very passive-aggressive." Arrington stared at her, utterly speechless. He watched as the deadliest sniper in the history of American special operations turned around and walked back across the tarmac. She opened the door to her battered silver Honda Odyssey, tossed her purse into the passenger seat, and fired up the engine. She rolled down the window, gave the 4-star general a cheerful, polite wave, and drove out the heavily fortified gates, vanishing back into the mundane, invisible world of the American suburbs. The ghost of Kandahar was gone, but the PTA treasurer was right on time. What an absolutely incredible conclusion to the story of Sarah Hayes. The way she seamlessly transitioned from saving elite SEALs in a war zone right back to delivering orange slices for a youth soccer game is the ultimate definition of a silent professional. Did you expect her to turn down the general's massive promotion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you loved this tactical drama, hit like, share with your friends, and subscribe for more epic stories.